Welcome back to another episode of the SIT Down at Uptown. I'm your host, Angelo Sykes, man, and I'm privileged, honored, and even humbled to be sitting next to legendary comedian, great dude, the one and only Don D.C. Curry. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good till you call me a legend, because legends got about 3 months to live.
Hey, listen.
Thank you, man.
You've done it for a long time and have been consistent at it. So, speaking of longevity, how long have you been in the comedy game?
38 years.
38 years. Wow.
38 years.
So listen, let me ask you this question. 38 years of comedy. Tell me about the first time D.C. Curry stepped on stage.
Actually, the first time I actually went up, not getting paid or nothing, at open mic. I used to play baseball, and I would go to comedy shows on open mic night when we were on the road. That's what I like to do. And I went to an open mic night, and they ran out of amateur participants. And the guy asked, would anybody in there know any jokes you want to come up? So ain't nobody in there know me, so I couldn't embarrass myself. Ain't nobody know me.
Right.
And I went up.
Really?
That's 11,012 shows ago.
11,012 shows ago. Incredible. So that's really the first time you stepped on stage?
That's the first time I stepped on stage. I was supposed to do 4 minutes. And I did about 2 minutes. And I told every joke I ever.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm.
So, you mentioned something. I was going to ask that question, but since you already mentioned it, tell us about your baseball career. I mean, you were...
It's very minimal.
Well, I'm saying...
I played Victoria, Canada, Victoria Blues. I played San Luis, Mexico, and then I signed with Detroit Tigers, and I went to Bristol, Virginia, which was a rookie league. They sent me up to A-ball, Lakeland, Florida. And then in 81, I think it was, I was a first baseman. They converted me to a catcher. But they signed Ricky Leach and released me.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Your first base, so throughout high school, that was first base was your main position?
Yeah, I played first base in high school. Right field part of the time, but yeah, high school, played first base and wrestled. I was a wrestler.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. No football? No basketball?
No, they wouldn't let me play football. They said I was too skinny.
Is that right?
I wanted to play football. They said I was too skinny.
Really?
Yeah.
So in your baseball career, was there anyone that was in that group throughout the different teams that made it to the majors?
Most of my friends during that time were already in the bigs, man. About whatever thing. Ellis Valentine, my buddy, out of Birmingham. Hubert Brooks was my buddy. Bobby Pate. All of us would work out together in the off season, in the winter, in Los Angeles, California. That was my first tie. Those were my first ties to California. But Mark Fidrich, the Bird, was my buddy. Later on, I met Al Rabowski. Used to be the mad Hungarian. Used to talk to the ball. And played with him. He was very open with advice and so forth. So I met a lot of guys, man, but it was kind of funny in hindsight. All my friends were in the major leagues. I was in the minor leagues trying to get to the major league. And all my buddies were in the major league. Marquise Grissom, one of my best friends now, but I didn't know him back then. Yeah.
So when you were cut, you gave it up at that point the last time? I mean, what?
When I was cut, I had a good year, and I thought I would get called back to a team in the United States. I got off from Japan, and I didn't take it. So, I had grown up in Chicago, and I came here where my brother was living because I didn't want to go back to Chicago where I couldn't work out. because of the winter. I came here thinking I would go back after a year, that somebody would sign me, and nobody ever signed me. So that's how I ended up staying in Atlanta.
You're originally from where?
I grew up in Chicago. I was born in Denver. But yeah, I grew up in Chicago. I was born in Denver. My daddy played baseball. He was in the Dodger chain in Kansas City, Montana. My daddy played professional baseball for 14 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. You have a history of baseball then.
Yeah, well, he had played, and then incidentally, I bought one of his bats, with his name engraved on everything. I bought it off the internet a couple months ago.
Get out of here.
The Bat Boy, who's 85 now. The Bat Boy was 85, so he had all these bats on sale that he had stole from the place. And one of the bats he had on the internet for sale was my daddy's bat.
Really?
Yeah, and I bought it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did somebody tell you about it? You search? How did you find it?
One of my brothers saw it on there, and then, they ain't got no money, so they called me.
All right, then.
And I bought it, and he had a history, about it, about my dad playing back then in the Negro League for Kansas City Monarchs, and then he signed with the Dodgers later on.
Wow. That's some interesting stuff there.
Yeah, man, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it is, for real.
Pretty fascinating.
So let's fast forward to your comedy world. You took the stage just off of basically a whim, and when you hit it, did you get the feel of I like this, or how did it grow from that one night to 11,000 plus shows? What was the feel that night?
That first night, after 3 minutes, mediocre night, I didn't get booed, but it wasn't like, oh, he's got it. But I did feel like in my heart, I can do this.
Okay.
But I never did think, that I would, it was really a career. Even in my first 3, 4, 5 years, it was just a side hustle to me. And then after 4, 5 years, I just, in my mind, I never thought about being no accomplished. I just wanted to be a professional comic. And I said I could do that. After that first night, I brought me one of those little, back then they had the miniature cassette recorder.
Right. And
I recorded every show I did at that time. And then I would just listen to it, man, just repeatedly. And I should have said this first. I should have said that first. I should have said this word instead of that word. One thing led to another. I never asked to be on a show in my life. But I would go to open mic at different places every week. Paul Mooney was coming to town. I've been performing about 3 years. I had about 15 minutes. Paul Mooney was coming to town and the feature act council. And they asked me, would I like to be on the show? This is my first paid gig. They said we give you $70. It was 14 shows. And I was tickled to death.
Really?
And I took the gig, $70, $5 a show.
Wow.
And I opened, that was my first paid gig, I opened for Paul Mooney.
Wow.
And at the end of the week, at Sunday night, after we did the last show, they handed me a pink slip, said I owed them $123 for what I had drank.
Are you serious?
Yeah, Gary Williams.
Wow.
I still owe him $123. I said, I'll be down if I'm gonna pay you $123.
Out of 14 shows. Wow.
That's a true story. Later on, Paul Mooney became one of my biggest confidants. Back then, comics, and I made an effort to be more sharing, if they asked me, to the young comics that approached me and asked me, I tell them what I know. But back then, they wouldn't talk to me.
They didn't do that?
3 or 4 guys that talked to me. John Witherspoon, Paul Mooney, Dick Gregory, somewhat, and George Wallace, who's still alive, but he's like 160.
Wow, that's fascinating though.
Richard Pryor talked to me a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Really? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't talk to you a little bit, but you were around. I mean, Rich, to me, is the greatest comedian of all time, in my mind. So, but being around him, how was he to everyone else? I mean, to be around
I didn't know him in his heyday. When I met Rich, it was in his latter days.
Okay.
I'll tell you something I never said before, but it's true. But I want to preface it with this. I ain't got nothing against nobody, man. I was a host for Comic View. After I was a host, Gary, what's his name? White brother. That became host of BET's Comic
Gary
View.
Owens.
Gary Owens.
Right.
Ooh, he all right with me. I ain't got no problem. But my mindset was that BET had been created because when we came up, for a comedian to be declared legit, you had to do Johnny Carson. Well, he wasn't letting no black comics on. So BET came up with this thing, and they were it was an avenue for black comics to be heard. And so I'm admittedly saying I had a little problem when Gary was up to be the host. You created an avenue for black comics who have been who have not had the opportunity that the white comics have had. And then because you think it'll increase your ratings, you're gonna bring in this guy. And I'm careful not to be racist. But anyway, to make a long story short, Richard Pryor and I were at the show when they gave him the host position. Richard and I were at a table. And when they announced that Gary would be the next host, Richard shared some expletives with me and got up and walked out.
Is that right?
That's true.
Wow.
That's true.
Wow.
Because even he, who had been on Johnny Carson,
right,
he said, you're going to create a vehicle for black comics to be exposed. And then this guy, come in and take advantage of it, and he's not a member of the community that you created the show to help.
That's deep. That's deep.
Yeah.
So, speaking of somebody like a Richard Pryor, Paul Mooney, George Wallace, you worked along amongst some of the greats. Who haven't you worked with yet that you would like to, whether it be on tour, movie set, TV set? Is there anybody out there that you would like to work with, be interested in working with?
Any comic?
Any comic?
I never worked with Bernie. We had talked. I never worked with Bernie. I thought Bernie was hilarious. I think to this day, Wanda Sykes is hilarious. Worked with Cheryl, I worked with Dale Gibbons, I worked with some more even now. Dale too. Ain't a whole lot that I can think of that I have worked with. I worked with LaWanda Page. Never worked with Red Fox.
You ever meet Red?
I met Red in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah. But in hindsight, I've opened for quite a few. Back in that day, it's amazing how time goes. I'd be the youngest cat in the room, man.
Right.
We'd be in Las Vegas, Dick Gregory, Richard Pryor, Ronaldo Ray, Rodney Winfield. And I was the youngest cat in the room. George Wallace, George Carlin. And now, I'm the oldest son of a bitch in the whole show. Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
So
I've never worked with Eddie.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You be intrigued by that? Next Coming to America.
I worked with Arsenio, because Arsenio, was a magician. He wasn't a comedian.
Right.
But he my buddy. Arsenio called me. I don't know if you saw on his comeback, but they had a problem, writing problem, and John Witherspoon and I were in San Bernardino, California, outside Los Angeles, that week. Arsenio's writing crew, I think it was 14 of them, had a problem, and Arsenio called me. So the next day after we finished our shows, I went in and helped compile a script for his second show.
Wow.
When the writers were having trouble with the monologue. But he's a friend. He was a magician, really.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
Arsenio was a magician. He was opening for Dionne Warwick.
Wow.
Back in the day.
Wow. That's how he was discovered, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, that's how he got going.
So 11,000 plus shows.
And I'm including, I was on radio for 5 years.
Okay.
5 days. I'm including them.
How'd you like that? The radio?
It was all right. It was really developmental in a way. That's why I've been promoting radio for young cats now, because on radio the people can theoretically, they can't see you. Now with internet and stuff, I guess they can see you. But back in the day they couldn't see you, so you had to use words. If you were gonna paint a scene, you had to describe the scene and make the people be able to envision the screen without them seeing you. You couldn't turn no flips, and I ain't against comics that turn flips. Mm-hmm. You couldn't turn no flips, you couldn't dance. It was just your words. It was strictly radio. You had to be able to convey the picture that you were trying to paint. You had to be able to, just through strictly audio, convey what you were talking about. Right. So it was kind of developmental for me. I mean, I kind of enjoyed it.
So out of all your shows, is there a particular show that stands out to you two ways? Number one, negative way. Number two, I knocked that one out the park. That's the best show I think I ever had. Do you have either one of those?
Yeah, but there's a conflict there. One of the shows that comes to my mind right off is, I got booed one night in Atlanta.
Is that right? Really? How did that come about?
I saw it coming, man. I went up and I said 2 or 3 things, and then I could feel the crowd getting arrested. I said, this ain't going good. But it was funny to me, man. It was funny, man. I'm not gonna say I enjoyed it. But it was fun. Well, I'll take that back. I booed twice that I can remember. That time, I enjoyed it. I mean, I ain't gonna say I enjoyed it, but I just thought it was hilarious. Right. It was like, get your corny ass off the show. And that was 30-something years ago.
Wow.
So my first night I was gonna make a grand was in Atlanta on Washington Road. I had only performed at comedy clubs, This guy had a dance club on Washington Road, East Point, I think it was. Me and Bruce. And they were giving both of us $1,000. I had never made no $1,000. So, but in the club, you do a show, then they put the people out. You come back in and do the second show. Or you do the same show. So I was supposed to do 20 minutes. Bruce supposed to be doing 20 minutes. Hell, that's all we had. So we did the first show and then went in the back, took a nap. And about an hour later, said, okay, we ready to go for a second show. I said, all right. But I'm thinking comedy club where it's going to be a different set of people.
Right.
And I started walking up toward the stage, and I said, that sister was at the first show. Then I got a few more feet up. I said, hold up, all these people. And I got up there, I said, oh, Lord, I don't know no more jokes. So I said, I'm going to tell all my jokes backwards.
Oh, wow.
So I started at the back.
Right.
After about 3 minutes, man, they lit into my ass. Heard it! Heard it! And after about 5 minutes of that, I said, hey, y'all can holler heard it all you want. I ain't never made this kind of money. Y'all gonna hear it again.
Hear it again.
And I stayed up there for another 15 minutes and they booed me the whole entire time. I got that $1,000
Get
up, boy.
$1,000 though. Wow.
But those are, you know, I mean,
What
those
about
are
your
the
best?
2 nights. My best nights, I'm ashamed to say this, but we talk about best nights, you know, all I can think about is money, man. I was in, I made way more than I'm worth one night in Detroit at the Fox. I was getting a nice check to be on the show. I ain't gonna call no names, but I had been there at the Fox in Detroit a couple of months before that. And they asked me to come back. I said, well, I come back and host. I said, but I can't come back and headline the show. I was just there 2 months ago. I said, I know. They said, well, just come back and host. We'll get you the same thing. And it was a significant amount of money. So when I got there and got ready to do the show at the Fox, and it was sold out, and the guy that was supposed to headline was at the hotel refusing to come to the show, saying he was not going to try to close the show if I was hosting the show.
Is that right?
So the building basically doubled my money. Said, you close the show. And at that, when they did that, I said, I don't give a damn if I get booed from Jump Street. I'm gonna get this money. I made a lot of money.
Significant amount of money.
A lot of money. And the supposed headliner wouldn't leave the hotel unless I agreed to close the show.
Wow.
And the show was sold out. So,
wow.
God bless him.
I know that's right.
I'd like to do it again sometime.
I know that's right. So tell us about your, this is Sit Down at Uptown. So let's get a little bit about your history with Uptown Comedy Corner throughout its history, because we all know it's, you know, the origination back on Peachtree, the earthquake. Tell us about your history with Uptown. If you remember your first time and just how it's been throughout the years.
I don't remember the first time, but I remember when Uptown was first born, you know, so to speak. Back then, even as now, I've just always been a proponent. Is that the word?
For?
Huh?
Yes, sir, that's the word.
Of my people, man. I remember when I started, I used to perform at the funny something down off of Far Road.
Okay.
And they would ask me to come in at noon and do the 15 minutes I was gonna do that night. One white woman sitting out there with a notepad.
Really?
Yeah. And she said, okay, what would you do tonight if we let you on the show? You were supposed to do your 15 minutes. And I would show up that night and not do nothing I said, but just the thought. And then she would ask you, what you gonna wear? That's really when I started wearing sport coats, because my whole thing was, even if I had to comply to perform at the white clubs, I would do that, but I wasn't gonna go to my people and then be less those clubs were demanding that I dressed a certain way, so I wasn't gonna go to my people and do no less. You know? And so that's when I started wearing sport coats on stage, because they made me wear sport coats at the so-called majority club. I said, well, shit, I'm gonna wear one then everywhere.
Wow.
And so I did that. But then, at Uptown, when they began, I mean, at that time, like now, I just happy to be working, man. I was just happy to be working, but it was more of a hustle back then. Now, you got social media, and I ain't mad at them. Times changed, man. The older guys, older than me, was probably mad at me, because after a while, we started making more money than they was making. But, such is life, brother.
Right.
But I was glad when Uptown, was created. One of the first clubs was Gary Williams, the comedy act theater.
Right.
So I was glad to be working in there. But then, new in the game and stuff, and trying to see where you fit in. I was doing all the clubs I could do. I mean, I was going to all white clubs, if you can imagine that. Me. I've been all white clubs. I was going to all of them. But I was happy when there were opportunities with owners such as yourself, who were black, for what it's worth.
That's worth a lot, actually. Means a lot. But we won't get into that still tonight. Because you know how I feel about it, but we won't get into that. So how did you get the role in Friday? How did that come about?
Back then, the scouts from the studios and so forth would come out to the clubs. They don't do that no more. Now you got to go.
Right.
You got to go to New York, go to LA. Back then, they would send scouts out. They were hunting for, sitcom people to be at shows around and so forth. Anyway, BT came and they saw me at Comedy Act Theater and asked me to fly myself to Los Angeles. And I was like, it ain't that kind of party. And I turned him down 2 or 3 years in a row.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And finally they said, we'll send you a ticket and give you a room. Come out and perform. At that time, I think DL was a host. And I did, and then the relationship went from there. And then I think I did Showtime at the Apollo next. And then BET called me, and they actually paid me money to come and compete to be the host of BET's Comic View. And then I took that, and then I think in the interim, I won they had this big comedy competition, Tony Spires, who later on became my manager, but he wasn't at the time. He hosted the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition. Huge back in the day, lasted about 2 weeks, 4,000-5,000 people every night, Paramount Theater in Oakland, California. And I won. And from there, I signed with Warner Brothers. And then later on, I think in that year, 93 or 94, I won the host position with BET. I don't remember what you asked me.
I was asked about the movie. The movie Friday was the original.
Oh, Friday, yeah. Oh, so, Cube Summer. So I came back later on. I came back to Atlanta, just working. And got a call from Cube and them. And they flew me out to Los Angeles. And I went in and auditioned, man. And that was it. It was a wrap.
Gotcha. Were you anticipating another one? I mean, I know a lot of talk from John Witherspoon.
Second one? Oh, you mean another one now?
Right. I mean, before, so many people from that movie have passed on, but I know I remember when John was talking to me in the green room one night, he said he was hoping for another one.
I talked to Cube. I'm gonna tell you what happened, man.
Okay, talk to me.
I talked to Cube last at Spoon's funeral. And Cube asked me would I do another. Yeah. But anyway, Cube says what happened is he sold the rights. He sold the rights to another company and got a lot of money, man.
Sure.
I mean, millions of dollars. So I ain't mad at him.
Right.
Came up with a script. The other company didn't like the script, so they rejected it. So he said, we got to come up with another script. And when we do that, we come up with another script and then take it back to him. He said he'd like to do one more.
So you mentioned earlier about other younger comedians. What is your thought on the current comedian age where you have this social media conglomerate taking over, for lack of better words, in the comedy game? I mean, you get guys who not necessarily comedians or even funny yet, but they've got such a great following as a seasoned comedian that, like you said earlier, you took a tape recorder to play back your jokes. I mean, that's the level of professionalism. Do you see that same thing now? Or what's your feel on the internet comedian versus?
I don't see the same thing now, but I ain't mad at them, With time, comes change. I ain't mad at social media cats. A lot of them, it's evident when I see some of them perform that they haven't gone through the system. They haven't gone through and a lot of them now, they get 200,000 or 300,000 hits on something, and then, they think they're headliners. I mean, I've seen a lot of them. I ain't mad at social media, none of that, man. It's just a different time, However, I think they're missing something to not have done the road work, not have put in the road work. Now, some of them will survive. Some of them have survived. I've seen some of them come up and get in there and take the hits and learn the game, I ain't mad at it. DC Young Fly and boys on 85 South, but they wasn't road dogs like we were.
Right.
Driving from city to city, for $100. But it's a different game. What's the other boy's name?
Desi Banks.
Desi Banks.
Right.
And he was on show some more and I did the other day. Funny, man.
Yeah.
But I remember when he was coming in, he hadn't. What's gonna be interesting to me is, because I'm not hating. I've heard a lot of bad reviews about some of the younger brothers that got all these social media hits, and they can draw people, but then the people get to the show and say, it wasn't about nothing. So it's gonna be interesting to me to see on this second go round, because it's all about longevity. I got some places, I was at a place last week, man. I've been gone 27 years. It's gonna be interesting to see if people will repeatedly go to see these people after they say they've gone to see a show because of the hype. And then, they get there and the guy does the play that he did on social media. So I think the next few years, because this will be basically this now like second or third round since the social media influx, I think it'd be interesting to see if their attractions are sustainable. God bless them if they are. Some of them have figured it out. I've watched some of them come a long damn ways, man.
Right.
Country Wayne, DC Young Fly, But by and large, I think, the young cats are missing something when they haven't. And I don't want to sound like an old mad man, but when they haven't put in the work, back in the day, before any of us were making any money, But man, I'd hang out that's half of the reason of my first divorce.
Right.
I'm telling you the truth. Because I would be hanging out at the comedy club every night, man. Not even going up the nights when I couldn't go up. I was just hanging out. And a lot of times we just sitting around talking shit, man. But you got to see what was going on.
Right.
You got to observe. You got to take mental notes. Sometimes, you would get to talk to people and we were just shooting shit. And it was developmental, man. And I can remember back then we'd be on the road. It was such a challenge. I can remember us going out, and after 3 or 4 years, we had decent 10-minute sets. Sherman going on. And I remember us challenging each other, going into open mic night sometime at the comedy. It'd be packed. And we would get together before the show and say, I ain't gonna say nothing I've ever said before. Do or die. And we go up there, if you die, it was just a big joke, man. We just laugh, man. We just be like, you was horrible, man. What the hell was you? Wanda Smith, Sherman Gold, me, Monique back then.
Wow.
But I think it was all development.
So, 2 more questions. Number 1, we have you, finally got you booked here.
Is that right?
At the new Uptown.
What?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've been waiting on it. We finally got it done. So I want to get how do you like the new club? I mean, I know you haven't did your show yet, but you've been here. How do you like the new room? What's your thoughts?
It's nice, man. I tell you what, y'all stepped it up. Did a lot of unnecessary shit in the showroom. Very nice. I appreciate you holding your people in such high esteem. But I've had some of my best shows. Who's the blues singer said I had some of my best nights at a hole in the wall. But there's definitely no hole in the wall, man. And I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. It's nice. It's modern. It's accommodating. And I'm looking forward to it. There was a time, man. There was a time when the general talk, the general conversation was for you to be a successful comic. You had to appease the so-called, what do they call the clubs? The white club majority? Mainstream clubs. I never have bought into that. I never have bought into that, man. I mean, while I'm not anti anybody,
right, but
my comedy period, is about your perspective. I really can't give you I can give you a perspective as an American or as a man. I can't give you a perspective as a white man, because I'm not a white man.
Right.
So I had an interesting talk one time with Tom Joyner, where I was telling him, I said, maybe I ought to be less radical. He said, why? I said, I don't know, just try to be mainstream. And Tom was, man, his reply was, there's 40-something million black folk here that know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
And then there will be some people that are so-called mainstream that will understand what you're talking about. But you cannot, I said that to say, in the kind of comedy I do, which is really commentary and social satire, I cannot, from a personal perspective, I cannot effectively comment on somebody else's perspective. I'm talking about America as I see it as a black man and what I've experienced. And even in this room tonight, I got more experience being a black man in America than anybody in there.
Absolutely.
and none as being a white man.
Say none.
None. I can only imagine how it feels. And it must be great.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up with this right here. You know,
Yes, we are.
I like to do a top 5.
Oh,
But we're not gonna do a top 5 comedian. That's too simplified. I want to get Don D.C. Curry's top 5 go-to songs. When you need to vibe, whatever it is, what's your top 5 song? No matter the genre, blues, R&B, you name it.
my top 5 so.
Yes, sir.
Last $2. Johnny Taylor. That's my man that was in the Temptations movie. I feel like going on.
Right.
There's 2. What's the song? Earth, Wind, and Fire. Man, I like so much music. But I've done this before, and 2 of my songs on there, surprisingly, are gospel, man.
Nothing wrong with that. What are they?
Hey, remember. Probably got something to do with turning water into wine. That's why I can't remember. Oh, man. Man, I love so much music, man. I like music, man. Of late, last year or so, I've been coming out to, what I've been coming out to, Richard? Algebra.
Okay.
We're in this love together.
A nice one.
Yeah. What's that, 3?
That's 3.
Let me see. My latest song that I love of recent time. I wouldn't call it my favorite, but I be using it on them girls, man. Good Morning, Gorgeous.
Good morning, gorgeous, Mary Jane.
I have sang that to some of the ugliest women, and it works.
And it works.
No, I like Mary Jane. You know who I like, man?
Who's that?
Bruno Mars.
Oh man, I love Bruno Mars.
I like Bruno Mars.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm narrowing it down to artists. Try to see my favorite song, man. That's a tough question because I like all kinds of music.
Right.
Man. I guess I can't leave out Johnny Guitar Watson. Given today's times, ain't that a bitch?
There it is. And with that, we're going to wrap up the Sit Down at Uptown. Special guest, Don D.C. Curry. Sir, we appreciate your time.
I'm proud of you, boy. Steve Harvey would be proud.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate y'all tuning in. We out.